You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
This makes my nipples hard.
Come on over here, girl.
You guys banned the weirdest things there.
Yeah, no.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, ready?
Ready.
Okay. Hey, thanks for listening today. Oh, no, I don't want to say that. Let me try something else.
Fuck you for listening today.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. So, Paul and I have... no, go back one more time. Paul and I were totally doing this conversational thing. No.
Okay, take 4.
Hey, thanks for listening. I don't know why I keep saying that. I need to get that out of my head.
Okay.
This is what you do for getting us to restart the show. You know this is your fault.
We were like 3 whole minutes in before, too. We were doing great.
We were. Okay. Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. I've been thinking a lot lately about how Paul and I define adventure games. Some games have adventurous hearts, but don't fit neatly into our classic definition of the genre. So today we kind of want to talk at you all about those boundary pushers, or at least I want to talk at you all and maybe ask a few questions of Paul, because I've heard rumor he doesn't play too many non-adventure games. Like, are you an adventure game purist?
I don't play any fucking games anymore, it turns out. I like your no nonsense intro too. That was good. It was much needed after the prior 5 takes, which you guys will probably hear at the end of the little outro song or whatever. I haven't. It's been a while since I played a game. That's not true. I just played Quest for Glory. It's been a week or 3, but whatever. Mm-hmm. What are we talking about? Non-adventure games. I've played one.
Well, non-adventure games that are adventurous.
That's right. The most adventurous non-adventure games.
And you've played one. Well, we'll save it. We wouldn't want to drop your big one right here at the beginning of the episode if it's all you've got.
Yeah, I don't want to unfurl it. I don't want to roll it out onto the table.
That's right. It's a little too early for that. So, but I mean, okay, let's just start off. How would you define an adventure game? Like, do you think that an adventure game is solely like Sierra, LucasArts? Adventure is adventure, man. Like, don't clutter it up. Or do you think that there's maybe some gray areas out there?
I prefer to be kind of a dick about it, as opposed to like fast and loose, like whatever, man. You guys, can call it an adventure game just because you go on an adventure. I don't think that's the case. I think, my idea for an episode like this would be to talk about games that people are tempted to call adventure games, because they're adventurous or take place over a grand adventure, but they're not adventure games, right? So to answer your question, what's an adventure game? I would say it's a narrative-based game with little to no action. Because that's where this gets all muddy, right? It's like as soon as you bring action into it, it's not an adventure game anymore, in my opinion. Like, you can have some bullshit fight mechanics like Fate of Atlantis or whatever, but that's it.
It's kind of, you know what, and what had me thinking about this idea, too, is that my husband and I, like, ages and ages, like, back when the podcast was first on, I was talking to him about adventure games, and I said, hey, have you ever played an adventure game? And he's like, yeah, of course I've played an adventure game. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, imagine my excitement going up to hear that. I'm like, which one? Is it Day of the Tentacle? Like, is it King's Quest? Like, what's happening in here? And he's like, oh yeah, The Legend of Zelda. Obviously.
Right.
And I mean, okay, he insists it's an adventure game, and to be fair, like, it is literally an action adventure game. But I'd like to talk a little bit why, in my opinion, maybe this is for James's benefit when he listens to the episode, but why it isn't an adventure game in the classic sense that we'd think about it, Sierra, LucasArts, and all of that. And for one, Zelda totally has puzzles. Adventure games also have puzzles, right? Inventory-based problem solving, lots of exploration. I mean, those are kind of the hallmarks of an adventure game, right?
Cornerstones, if you will. Bedrock.
But, I would say a classic adventure game It prioritizes storytelling, dialogue interactions, problem solving, but like not a lot of combat outside of maybe Quest for Glory, bit of a gray area, fun to reference back to it. But I think in Zelda in particular, there's a lot of reflex-based gameplay. It's a lot more action-orientated. The whole game is testing your reflexes, your combat skills, and real-time exploration, but it's not like, I think with an adventure game, a lot of the progression is puzzle-centric. You don't have to be fast on it unless it's a timed thing. You have to, sorry for banging on my table there, but you have to solve puzzles and move forward. And I don't think adventure games punish for lack of coordination. And even if they do, I think often they give you a pass. Like, are you sure you really want to do this coordination thing? Because I'm pretty sure you just want to settle in to an adventure. So to me, Zelda has an adventurous spirit, but it's kind of action first, narrative second, and that's what puts it outside of the classic adventure game genre that you and I, as purists, would be thinking about.
Well, Anna, as I take a sip of this warm tea out of a ball glass jar, this golden amber tea that I'm cupping with two hands because it's warm and this room is freezing, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said storytelling. I think storytelling is at the heart of what makes an adventure game because storytelling is the first, I think it's the first thing that gets sacrificed when action is introduced. As you brilliantly put it, reflex-oriented action specifically kind of changes the whole vibe where suddenly you're like sitting up in the chair. But yeah, I think when storytelling is the first thing that gets cut when you bring action into it, you lose the story. Because as I was thinking about the most adventurous non-adventure game that I played, and I've got a few that we can get into later that I can definitively say I've played and are not adventurous. And then I've got the one pick, and then I was like, why is that adventurous even though it's not an adventure game? And it's because at the core of it, there's a great story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, to take it, though, as being an adventure and a story, Dragon Age Origins is kind of like, it's a game based on narrative storytelling. And to me, I was recommended this by a friend of mine, Stieg, and he said, you're an adventure game player. I know you've touched a little on games like Baldur's Gate. Why don't you give this game a go? And the whole plot of the game changes based on your decisions, right? So it's kind of like the player-driven narratives of a classic adventure title. Your companions have really cool personalities. They've got really neat backstories that you sort of discover throughout the game. And you genuinely end up caring about them, and you really miss them when the game's over, and you're hopeful to see what happens with them in the next entry in the series. And the way that it's set up, the combat, yes, you're like, combat, but yeah, Quest for Glory, okay, but it does demand creative thinking, because you can pause it and strategize it, and your dialogue choices affect the relationships with the whole world. So I don't know, it's a really emotional game. There's a lot of decision-driven narrative and really detailed dialogue trees. So you click into something, and depending on what you say, it affects the whole game, how people view you, and even what happens in the future. Like when you get to the end of the game, something happens because you did something else, or you made this particular reply, or maybe you killed somebody important. So it's like, and because you can pause it when you're doing the combat, it doesn't feel like they're punishing me for having poor reflexes. So, like, as far as like a real genre bending kind of an idea, and I don't play a lot of other RPG games, so I don't have a lot to line it up against. But to me, it really does feel like a grand adventure.
Why though? I mean, I know you just did say why. It sounds that I'm not listening, but I guess what I'm saying is I didn't really get a sense from your defense of it. I didn't really. None of that sounded like a grand adventure. It just sounded like okay, there's some dialogue out. How much storytelling? Okay, here we go. In which ways is it like an adventure game, and then in which ways is it not?
So. To me, it's not like an adventure game because of the whole crew. You have a crew of people to manage. You have to do their weapons and their armor. You have to look at their stats, and much in a grander sense than you would with Quest for Glory. So to me, that's more RPG. You're heading out to explore an open world. But the dialogue and the character interactions was what took me there more than anything else. Because you're meeting somebody, you find out about their backstory, you ask them a question, and then it'll flip you 5 more things that you can choose from, and you want to click through all of them to find out what's going on. And then there's a lot of fetch quests and inventory related puzzles that you have to figure out. So it's got those elements of adventure. And like I said, the fact that you don't have to have your reflexes on point, it's more like strategy adventure RPG to me.
Okay. Well, okay, let's pick up on this point then. One keyword that you keep saying that flags to me as non-adventure is strategy. Mm-hmm. But I might be wrong about that, so let's dive into that for a second. Is strategy a part of adventure games, would you say?
I've always thought it was. I mean, strategy of what you pick. Well, I guess adventure games to me are a little bit more linear. You do have that, right? You know that no matter what you do and where, you're generally going to come out the same at the end of the game because it's kind of all a little bit premeditated. I mean, you might get one of 5 different endings, but it's, that's all you're going to go for. So there's a little bit more openness to the Dragon's Age within the relationships. Because in most adventure games, you can't just kill a person who's important to the plot and then change everything about it.
Right.
But you can, sort of in Quest for Glory, you can kill the bear.
Right. Turns out, yeah.
Turns out. So, I mean, that does change the trajectory of the whole story for sure. So there is a little bit of freedom. But again, I can't keep comparing it because Quest for Glory is a bit of a hybrid. But it is still an adventure game. You can't say it's a strategy game. Can't really say it's an RPG game. It is still an adventure game.
Right. It's as close to strategy as you probably get, because you could argue that you can strategize, when you travel and how you travel. I don't know, maybe these screens you avoid. I don't know. It's a bit of a stretch, I guess. I've never articulated unto myself, but when I hear strategy, I kind of recoil a little bit, doesn't.
You're going to love the rest of my list.
Yeah, strategizing sounds like lengthy instructional manuals that need to be read beforehand. And like you hit the nail on the head. Adventure games are so linear. We all know that our choices are, the choice is an illusion in an adventure game, that it's not really making a huge difference. Choosing which path you take in Fate of Atlantis or Gold Rush isn't really a strategy. It's it's not like my strategy is to go the team's path. It's more just you pick that path and then you get to, I don't know.
Well, the dialogue matters, right? When you talk to somebody in Dragon's Age, quest lore or something, if you choose the right answer, it's going to either block or unblock opportunities. And in an adventure game, I'd warrant to say it's about the same thing. In Dragon's Age, you have to poke around. You got to look at every room. You got to talk to everybody. Maybe you got to catch that chest that has that one scroll. And if you miss it, you can delay progress or even leave entire content of the game locked. So you play through the whole game and you don't see it. And okay, imagine a game like Colonel's Bequest. If you don't go to a certain place at a certain time and hear a certain conversation, you're locked out of parts of the game. You can't solve the mystery, or you entirely miss scenes, right? Altogether.
That's just bad design, but that's then you soft lock the game.
But okay, and both of them though, whatever you have in your inventory bag always holds the solution. You have to figure out what you have in it and how you can use it.
Yeah. And no, but I shit on that for yucks, but it's a very good point, actually, that in both Laura Bow games, there is a small amount of strategizing as far as being in the right place to get the right information. And I don't even really fault Colonel's Bequest for say, soft locking you in a sense like that. That would be the consequence of mis-strategizing in a sense. Even if it's a bit harsh, at least I understand the spirit behind it. So that's fair. There is a little bit of strategizing in very few cherry-picked adventure games.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. The last thing I kind of want to say is Dragon's Age is a little bit different. It's like a really dark fantasy, but there's fart jokes in it. It's this, you're in a different time and everything's super serious and stuff is happening, but there's this lighthearted banter. Like, for example, when you're walking through an area, depending on which party members you pick, they'll all have these random conversations while you're going places. You don't get to pick anything. It's just kind of happening. And they're just like, through the ambiance, just having this little thing in the background. And to me, that's like, that brings it alive and gives me that adventurous spirit, because it makes me care about the characters. And caring about the characters is a lot of what I like about adventure games.
Yeah. Okay. That helps. That's good. I'm glad you added that part. That helps kind of paint a fuller picture of how you consider it adventurous. Investment into the characters, which creates, and you did say it was kind of dialogue heavy, right? So okay. So maybe the takeaway lesson here for me is in good dialogue and character building can supplement storytelling. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, before I get into yours, I want to say one more of mine, because I really think you're going to argue this one.
Okay.
Heroes of Might and Magic. Now, I know you've heard me bring up this series tons of times, and it's like a world building map scenario, campaign stories and all that, but you're exploring, like, the key elements to me. You're exploring new lands. You're discovering hidden treasures, artifacts, and unique events. And when I'm playing an adventure game, say Indiana Jones, for example, that's kind of what you're doing. You're going to a new land. You're exploring. You're unlocking places you haven't been before. And so Might and Magic, there's this narrative richness that you don't see with other games. The little funny Easter eggs and things that are hidden in the world. All the towns will have their own lore, so much so that they took that whole series and had Might and Magic, which is an RPG spin-off, using the characters in the strategy game as an RPG game. Like, there's this whole huge world of lore that surrounds them, right? Each person has their own personality. Even the hero that you pick to run your army has a personality. So it's like, I don't know, it's more like you're adventuring through a storybook than through a game in some ways, but it has a lot of puzzles. Like, for example, you'll come up to the Sphinx, and the Sphinx will say, oh, here's a riddle. If you get it right, you can get all these riches. If you get it wrong, you're gonna die. Or even, here, do you want to fight me or do you want to fight my minions? And if you choose him, well, you just die. But if you choose his minions, you can have a really cool battle and you can get some prize stuff out of it. So, and also for me, the adventurous part is I'm playing it with my family. My dad plays it. I'm playing with the family. So as we're playing Hot Seat and talking about it, we're adding lore to the world, right? We're pretending like this is what this leader's like and this is how we find the treasure. So, like, maybe not as tightly connected as the Dragon's Age game, but there's definitely adventurous elements in the series.
So what I'm hearing is that in where the game is, that you and your family project an adventure onto it.
Yeah, that's a part of it as well.
I'm sat back in my chair with my arms folded and
I knew that.
Unimpressed. Okay, no, for real. Let me give it a chance. So, what this makes me wonder is the difference between storytelling and lore. Mm-hmm. So maybe, okay, let's start this way. What is the storytelling in the game?
It's more in like the background of the heroes and how each town has its own story. So like what it'll do when you pick a scenario is it'll say, okay, classic battle of good versus evil. You're the good guy. You have to take this other hero and you have to transport him through 3 different lands so that he can survive, so that you can take him to the next quest. So, and then every once in a while things will happen, like a rider will come up and say, oh, the weather is kind of like this today. Do you want to choose to do this or that? And it'll pull you deeper into the lore as you go into it. So it creates a story. So you're not just playing a game to win and conquer. You're playing the game because you want to follow the storyline. Like, oh, it turns out your brother was connected to this guy. This guy did this over here, and he needs this treasure to connect this to this, and it'll build on it. It's actually pretty unique. There's not a lot of other games that do it like that. So as you're adventuring, you're going to come across more adventure and pull you deeper into the idea, which makes it more fun than doing, say, just a random scenario where you're just like find treasure, conquer town. So they have storylines and plots built right in with the scenarios, and they also build on each other and get more complex as you go further into the game.
Okay, I'll relate this to one of my non-choices, which was because I really truly haven't played and finished many non-adventure games in my life, but one of two that I have played and finished, at least in the last decade, was Spider-Man, the console game that came out, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I was trying to force Spider-Man into being an adventurous non-adventure game so I'd have something to talk about. And I couldn't, because the conclusion I drew from that was that it sounded a lot like what you're describing here, which is like, it's not really, like there is like a really thin overarching story of something Kingpin, but like it's ultimately like this collection of tiny, shallow stories that get you from task to task. So it's like, instead of like I didn't really ever feel like I was immersed in a story. I felt like I was given a tiny micro story on my way to a problem that I had to action my way through. And it's like, it's just really shallow on the story front, where it's just like, here's this guy and he got out of jail and he's mad at you because of this thing that you did back in the day. And like, you know, you could say that it's telling a story and that as you get there, you're learning a little bit more about the character. And I could romance it and say, oh, and it turns out that he's doing this because 10 years ago, we were the ones that locked him up. But at the end of the day, it's just like a really reading off the back of a box synopsis kind of storytelling, where it's like the focus was on the action parts, and they're just kind of out of necessity telling you something to frame what's about to happen.
Actually, you've got me thinking. You know what? I think you're right. Adventure games make you live the story. And a game like Heroes or Spider-Man, they tell you a story.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one is like, it's a different kind of immersion, right? A little bit in each one, I think.
It is, because you also, there's something there too with the amount of times you mention the word lore. And I think you're right that these stories, like, instead of like a fleshed out story with depth, you just get like little sprinkles of lore, like little sprinkles of like, well, there's a tiny little backstory here and a tiny little backstory there, but like none of it really adds up to like a grand story with like, I don't know. I don't know how to actually elaborate on that much further, but there's something there, right? With like lore in place of story. Where it's like they just kind of insist upon you, like we assure you there's a lot going on here, because if there wasn't, how would you know that elves don't usually come to this part of the forest? And it's like, yeah, okay, I mean that's lore that you could say that's rich with lore, that there's elves and wizards and this and that, and the elves don't do this and the wizards do that, and it's like, but is any of that a story, or is that just like the rules of your world? So yeah, I don't know. There is something to lore in place of storytelling.
Right, and I guess it depends on how the game does it, because I've been watching my kid, like, I haven't played much of it, but he's playing the Fallout games, and it's totally an RPG, but it's the closest to an adventure game that I think he's actually played. He's wandering this world, he's talking to NPCs, much like Dragon Age, he's solving puzzles through the dialogue and environmental interaction, same as I said before, there's like story outcomes that you're influencing. It just, they took an adventure game and kind of layered RPG mechanics on top of the skeleton of an adventure game. Because that's really, those ones go so deep into stories that they ended up branching off. They've made TV shows out of it, and
right.
there's all this story that's in there. So like I played some of the third one and got through the first. You know what? And I really liked it at the beginning when they introduced your character and you figured out your choices and you age up and you have birthdays, but then all of a sudden you're outside and you have to like kill things a whole bunch, and it's like, okay, this is definitely an RPG game, but there are so many adventure elements in it.
Yeah, that sounds like the primary candidate for this, whatever wins this episode. You know, approved non-adventure games. Right, but because it has me thinking about the lore thing, and like Spider-Man's a good example of that too, because it is just a collection of lore. Like what do the comic people call that? I wish I could think of it. The not back catalog. There's a specific word for a hero's specific a hero's catalog of foes and adversaries that I can't think of right now. That's okay.
That's okay.
The
it's
trickster,
like canon? Canon?
Nah, not quite. It's like a comic-specific kind of word. The trickster in me is happy that like 5 listeners right now are yelling it at us, so that's good. But because so Strummer came up to me the other day, and he was like, because lore is like, I don't know, it's like a buzzword among 8 to 12-year-olds right now, like the brain rot videos and shit are talking about lore a lot lately. Like, well, what's the lore to this and the lore to that? And he's like, Dad, what's the lore to the Phantom Fellows? And I was like, in an adventure game, the whole game is lore. That's that's all it is. There's actually nothing but lore. It's just a bunch of hours of lore playing out, basically. Like, you know what I mean? It's a strange question in that sense. It really makes you wonder about lore too, because it's like, if you're just telling a story, then like the whole thing's lore. But like if it's a collection of actions and side quests, then maybe that's where the word lore is more appropriate. Lore is like maybe looking at lore as like the thing in which ties together this web of micro interactions.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like to think about that. You're discovering the lore through the story, which you're also doing with an RPG game, but in a different way because you're living the lore, I guess.
Yeah,
it's a funny line to say.
I know,
okay, well, when I, what's that?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying when I first moved on from playing adventure games and started jumping into other genres and playing games like Baldur's Gate, I happened into Half-Life, which I've played the Half-Life games, and my son, who's not into adventure games, has also played the Half-Life games. And of course, the first ones were by Sierra. I mean,
Right.
I guess you could call it Sierra in a sense. But it tells your story through your experience. You're exploring labs, you're interacting with your surroundings, and you're piecing together things that happened through visual clues instead of cutscenes and things. So it's kind of connected in that it emphasizes your immersion and your curiosity and, I don't know, environmental puzzles. And it asks you to think your way through situations and absorb the world and kind of, it wants you to approach the challenges thoughtfully instead of through reflexes. I mean, even a game like Tomb Raider does that a little bit, like in a puzzly kind of a way. You know, you get to this cliff. Can you just jump onto the cliff? No, you have to do a series of things before you can jump onto the cliff, which is what I call the spirit of adventure games in a game that is entirely not an adventure game. But there's this heart of adventure games in them.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that in like I don't know if that's true actually. I like one game I thought that I would get that from that I didn't was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I really wanted to like that game. Like I just loved the idea of it. I mean, obviously the assassin angle is super cool and hence the franchise's success, but then taking it back to you know, this piratey vibe and things like that, where the idea of like sailing the seas and rolling up on islands and doing assassin-y pirate shit. It just sounded really cool, and the game was super good looking at the time. I think it came out in like 2013 or something like that. But it was just not there. Like I played it for like, probably like 10 hours or so. Like I really tried to get into it and I just couldn't because there was just no story. There was nothing there. There was just like, you know, you talk to an NPC and he's like, oh, my blah, 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 you need to do this and do that. And it's like, it's not really a story. It's just a reason to go spend the next 45 minutes trying to, you know, break into a place quietly and steal the thing back for the guy, as opposed to like, you know, any actual storytelling. It was just like these really shallow little microtransactions that stitched together these giant action sequences that you had to engage in. Which fair enough. I mean, like, you know, that if that's your thing, like the more strategizing, coordination based stuff like is all good, but there was just like there wasn't any story there, and it was disappointing because it felt it just had like the trailer is very adventurous,
Right.
you could say, and like I played some of Uncharted and that had more storytelling than at least than Black Flag and like Spider-Man and stuff like that, but it's just it's so I don't know. I guess what am I trying to say? If you were to cut out all the action sequences from a game like Uncharted, you'd be left with like a pretty flimsy story, where it's like it serves the game really well because it only works because you get little bits at a time. But if you were to like remove all the action and stitch the whole story together, it would be like a pretty like iffy story.
Yeah, that's true. Well, okay, my son, he's 14, and he's obsessed with Civilization 3, which is about as far from adventure game as you could possibly get. And he came up to me with two reasons that he was kind of thinking there is adventure game elements to it. And okay, for one, he mods the game, right? That's kind of one of the things he does. And it kind of parallels the puzzle solving aspect of adventure games. He's tweaking code, correcting files, and figuring out what are essentially puzzles. And those puzzles tell a story of their own, but it's his story, right? It's personalized. So like there's that touch of adventure, but also there's storytelling in a game like that. Every decision you make, whether it's like diplomacy or it's war, it all branches off into these unique narratives. Like it's not a script unfolding through dialogue boxes. I get that. But every playthrough tells a different story. You've got characters, alliances, betrayals, dramatic turns of events, and I mean, it has the heart of an adventure game beating beneath it. You know, they both create stories just a little bit differently. Like my tiny Greece is held off from the Mongols for 300 years, but I launched a spaceship and I won. Whee! Right? In an adventure game, you're like, oh, I've uncovered the mystery, I beat the villain, and I restored the balance. Even in a game like The Sims, there is a story, but you have to create it yourself a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's almost the antithesis of an adventure game, where the game's like, yeah, come up with your own story, like terrific. That sounds like the opposite of a narrative experience when they're like project your own thing onto us. Because I totally get what you're saying, and there is something to be said about a game that inspires you to tell a story. That's pretty cool in its own right. When not being asked if it's an adventure game to an adventure game purist, like there's plenty of amazing and valuable things from an experience like that. But as far as putting it anywhere near like counting as an adventure game, and be like, well, yeah, probably not.
Well, what elements? Okay, you're probably gonna. I already feel I know what your answer is. I won't tell you, but okay, what elements from all of those non-adventure games would you think would work in a classic adventure game? Like out of everything I've kind of talked about, and you know, this is for the listeners as well. Do you think it could integrate, or does it just need to be kept entirely purist and separate?
That's tough. It's tough because if we're really speaking purist, like then a purist isn't going to want any action sequences at all. There's people that can't stand the arcade sequences in the older Sierra games, and I'm not that pure. Like I like them. There's nothing wrong with like a quick little break from like a slow pace and doing something a little fast paced. Like, I mean, I like them with an asterisk mark, right? If they're fair, but yeah, I mean, to a purist, like no, and any action's gonna just be in the wrong genre. Like you 99% of the game market is action sequences and action-y stuff, and there's this one little tiny niche genre that pardons you from having to deal with it. Yeah, I don't know. Hearing you talk about everything, it's like one thing that I guess you've made me realize is that exploration does not equal adventure. Because I'm looking at even just screenshots of Heroes of Might and Magic and listening to you play it, and it's like I can completely see what you mean. Like you're exploring the land and the way you romance about it is intoxicating in a sense, where it's like you uncover treasures and you know, archaeological digs or whatever for scrolls and maps, and like this you definitely paint a really nice picture of going on an adventure and And all of that is centric to exploration and exploring the land. But it's like that's not enough, I guess. It's just not enough for an adventure game, which makes me lean back again on the storytelling aspect. It must just be the story.
What about something like Stardew Valley? It's non-linear, it's an adventure, and all of it's based on character-driven narratives. Like, you don't even have to fight. You can just fish all day, talk to the villagers, get married, and uncover their backstories. Like, maybe the mayor is sleeping with Pam, and you found her undershorts in his house and things like that. So it's like, I think, like, there's an aspect of it, the relationship building, that I brought back that idea in a few of these, that to me, I think the character to character relationship building must be an important part of the adventure. But then you think about a game like King's Quest 4, there's not a lot of relationship building. Like, you're meeting characters and you're going through the motions and figuring out strategizing puzzles, but you're not forming relationships. So I guess that in and of itself isn't the key to an adventure game.
Right, because that's completely optional. You might say, like, there are certain adventure games, Gabriel Knight comes to mind, where you go back and talk to the characters again, and you start to feel this form of relationship there. Or you start to predict what they might say if you talk to them. Like, I would say that's when you might be forming a relationship in the game. What's Stardew Valley's story?
Well, you're working at an office and you're kind of just living the life and going through the motions, and you don't have any passion at all. And your grandfather, in his will, leaves you this farm, and it's a really dilapidated farm. It's really run down, and you end up in a town. Nobody knows who you are, nor does anybody really care. Like, you go up and you talk to somebody like Haley or try to give her a gift, and she's just like, ew, why are you even talking to me? Like, she's really mean to you. That's why everybody wants to marry Haley, right? Because she's...
Classic Haley, yeah.
Classic Haley. Yeah, and I mean, so as you bring the farm up and start treating it like a better farm and taking care of it, chopping down the trees, putting in gardens, for farming and getting produce in, all of a sudden you start having people coming over and they're like, oh, I see you're really kind of making something of this, come. And then as you explore, more things unlock, different islands, different quests, different people to talk to. And then you find out more lore, like, why does Abigail have purple hair? And who's her father really, though? Because he doesn't have purple hair. But wait, the wizard has purple hair. Like, and then you find out that she goes out late at night and hangs out in front of the wizard's house. And you're like, what's going on here? And there's all these little things that they've put in there. Like, why is Alex living with his grandparents? Oh, it turns out Pam doesn't have a house. She runs the bus. So if you get far enough in the game, eventually the option comes open to buy her a house and completely change her life for the better. You don't have to do that. You can also make a choice. Do you want to play the game straight up, finish the community center, and make the town productive in that way? Or do you say, screw it, you don't care about Pierre's being closed on Wednesdays, and you don't care about the community center, you just want to use money, so you buy a Joja membership, the community center becomes a storage lot, and Pierre never gets to be open on Wednesdays, but you get to buy everything you want without having to forage and collect for it.
Okay. So the first quarter of what you said just then was a story, and then it completely falls into a series of questions, tiny questions being answered under the guise of lore, which is fair.
Very much. Yeah.
But it's like, at the end of the day, you have a ho-hum job and you decide to do something completely different, so you open a farm. You meet a bunch of people, you learn things about them. Mm-hmm. And I know that's minimizing it, but that is like, that's kind of the story. And then there's the expansion of the lore where you learn, you're kind of like given breadcrumbs and answers to little questions that the game probably plants seeds for, and you start to unravel just little truths in between massive amounts of grinding.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you want to grind. I mean, there's actually no real reason you have to. I can entirely play it as a social game. I'm not going to fish. I'm not going to mine. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to meet who I want. I'm going to bring them little gifts I find foraging from the ground because I don't care about money. I'm going to find somebody to marry. They're going to move out of their house. They're going to move into my house. Maybe we're going to have some babies. Maybe I don't want to turn them into doves at the wizard's house. Maybe I want to keep the babies. It's up to you. And then your spouse will go around gardening and doing things for you. And at no time do I need to grind at all.
Right.
If I don't want to.
But even without grinding, that's still. And I'm not just to remind everybody, I'm not shitting on this at all. I'm just again just comparing the ways in which it might fall short of being an adventure. That's all I'm trying to say. An adventure game is that the what would you say? Everything you described without grinding, none of that's the unfolding of a story. It's just things that you can do. Is that right?
Well, I mean, the story does unfold. It's not just things you can do.
Well, okay. Tell me the story that unfolds.
The story, well, again, it's people-centric. Each person has their own story, so it's not so much your story that unfolds. It's their stories that unfold over time. Maybe that's another different. In an adventure game, you find out who you really are, and in a game like Stardew Valley, you go in and find out who everybody else really is. But then you could say Quest for Glory is like that a little bit. You come in a strange town, nobody knows you, nobody trusts you. You have to meet people and talk to people to figure out what you need to do, to figure out who all of them are. Because at no time, other than the fact that you went to the Adventurers Correspondence School, do you know a lot about yourself. You learn about yourself through the progression of the adventure. By the third one, you're recognized. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're a hero. But then by the fourth one, you're nobody again. And they're like, who are you? Spit on the ground. You have to work your way up and learn about themselves again so that they can learn. The closest thing in Quest for Glory is you can tell people about yourself. You can say, tell person about self, or click on yourself with a mouth in the later games and tell them about what your adventures were. But all you're doing is telling them your adventures of the previous game. Not, when I was a kid, my mom used to drink a lot of coffee or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the conclusions to draw again is there's something to be said about in place of a story, there's the little tiny microtransactions, micro conversations, and those conversations can be called lore to a degree, and instead of a coherent linear story unfolding, you just walk around and find stuff out about random people.
If you want to, yeah.
Right, but if you don't want to, then the other option is to farm and to grind, because without walking around and talking to people, there's only one other option, and that option isn't a linear story that you can unfold.
Right, other than the town itself, which is the story. Like, for example, if you talk to nobody, like me in my first playthrough in Stardew Valley, I didn't make a damn friend. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't really grind that much. I just explored. I went to the mines, and I tried to make a basic income. So as such, you learn, there's rocks in front of the waterfall. They're going to take the rocks down because of this project or that project, but it doesn't go a lot deeper than that.
Right.
Did you have like a real entry, or was that your one?
Which one?
Any one of the ones you talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sorry, because I'm still trying to digest everything with Stardew Valley there, because there's something to be said about these like microtransactions, like these small. I guess I'm not satisfied in the way that I've drawn the conclusion there, because I'm trying to say something I haven't been able to actually say, I guess, the whole episode yet, and I don't know. Well, obviously what that is, or I would have said it. But it's like, okay, if you were to, for a moment, just for quick sanity check-in. So this isn't. You don't have to defend Stardew Valley as a good game, right? But just looking at it and how it is or isn't an adventure game. That's it. Its reputation is not on the line. It's a great game in its own absolute right. But just for the sake of if it's an adventure game or not, like, do you feel the same satiation learning about the fate of the mine or whatever? Sorry, the example you just gave me a second ago with what's happening with the city. Do you find how does that compare to like the unfolding of a larger story?
Right. And I mean, that's true. It is smaller bits. Like, going with the mine example, I mean, it depends on how much I care about learning about the land. It's like the land of the Green Isles. How much do I care about the lore of that? And is it pertinent to my gameplay outside of copyright protection? Learning that this land, this happened here, this happened there, how much does that bring me into the story? Does it or not? It depends on if I'm the kind of person that cares about the backstory of a town.
See, but I would say the difference there is that in the case of a non-adventure, that is the story. That's all you get, right? Because you were like at the Green Isles, will that bring me more into the story? And it's like comparing that to the mine in Stardew Valley, like that is the story. That's all you get. Mm-hmm. Does that register with you, or am I off the mark? I feel like I'm off the mark.
Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, they have backstories in the town, and there's personal arcs that you're uncovering through dialogue and gifts, and the relationship itself, the building of it is a puzzle, right? Crop schedules, community center bundles, finding out, like, what is this person like? When does this crop grow? Where do I find this fish, and where do I need to use it to complete the next, part of the game? That's where it kind of connects for me, because an adventure game's like that too. Like, where do I find the fish? Who do I give the fish to? And by giving the fish to this person, what does it unlock? Does it unlock more story? Does it unlock another screen that I can go to? Like a new area in the game would only unlock after a certain event or sequence of events would happen. So that's adventure gating, right? In a way.
Right.
I guess you could call it.
Maybe you
you create. Well, I was just going to say you kind of create your own emotional arc with your choices and your relationships. But I think it's like that in that way. You have to create it in your mind what you want the emotional arc to be and what you want the story of the town to be. Where in an adventure game, that's going to play out no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Right. That intersects with, I guess, the point that I was going to make, which is it sounds like. See, I don't like Stardew Valley as an example because it's got this sandboxy vibe to it. So it does. There's that just wide openness that kind of. It just makes this conversation really difficult to frame, I guess. Whereas if we're looking at a game like Hero, any other game that you've mentioned so far, it makes it easier to frame around anything that's not a sandbox. But the way you described Stardew Valley, it's like. It's almost like the look at and interact options in an adventure game where you have the choice to look at and interact with the world to get more detail on the world. If you care to, if you want to stop and explore and get more lore and get more information about the world. And then if you don't, then the game falls back on its core storytelling narrative. And then in Stardew Valley, if you don't, the game falls back on aimlessly wandering or grinding at the farm.
Which is true because I'm playing it with James and with Jacob, and we're all playing it together. So we all have a little world that we play together, and we've all taken on roles. So for me, because I've never played socially, I'm playing a social game. I'm going out there, I'm uncovering the lore, I'm meeting people, I'm trying to marry Abigail because she's adorable, all of those things, because I've never gotten married in the game. And Jacob is playing it on the grind. We have to plant 500 crops, and we have to get fertilizer, and we have to get sprinklers, and we want to make the absolute most amount of money we can, and that's his care. And then James is like, I want to chop down every single tree, and I'm going to make a gigantic tree farm, and I want a better axe. So all I care about is upgrading my axe, chopping down trees, and making a tree farm, and I'll go grind with you guys in the mine because that's what we do on rainy days. So all three of us are getting a completely different experience, but we're all playing it at the exact same time.
Right.
So you're right. If you're not caring about the story and the lore, it falls back onto the grind. Absolutely. And an adventure game's not going to do that.
Yeah. So how does that all tie together then? I guess I don't know. I think we've fallen a little bit into I don't know. I don't know where to go with this right now. What do you got?
Well, I think even though they're not technically adventure games, Dragon Age, Civ, and all that, it proves adventure's more about how a game feels to a person than how a company's going to go and label it. Does it feel like an adventure game to you because you like adventure games and you're finding the adventure game in this game? Like, to me, Dragon's Age Origins felt like an adventure game. It felt like I was going out on a grand adventure, but if somebody came up to me and said, hey, what kind of game is it? I'd say, oh, it's an RPG. it's a very adventurous RPG, but it's an RPG. So I wouldn't mislabel it and say, actually, it's an adventure game. But it is really up to each individual. Somebody who doesn't care about adventure games is going to play Dragon's Age Origins and say, well, it's an RPG game. Like, I guess I'm going on an adventure.
I don't know. I hate that answer. Sorry, no offense, but I do. It's so unsatisfying. It's because it's just very safe and like whatever you guys want. But it's like,
it's true though. It really is so subjective.
I don't think it is. I don't think it's subjective. I really don't. I don't think it's like. I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a music metaphor in a sense to be like, I don't know. Yeah, I got nothing. I've had nothing this whole episode, unfortunately, in my own defense.
Well, Stardew Valley, there is no inventory puzzles. Adventure games always have inventory puzzles, right? There's no fixed narrative. There is no dialogue tree with matching consequences of any sort like you get in Dragon's Age. So if you were doing like a formal criteria, like this is an adventure game, no matter the opinion, it's just if somebody placed Dragon's Age or Stardew Valley on a list of adventure games, you'd be like, the person writing this article doesn't know what they're talking about because it is clearly not an adventure game. So it's sort of like if you back up and you squint your eyes, you can see the adventure in it. There it is unfolding around you. There's secrets and all that, but it's not objectively an adventure game at all. It's adventure adjacent, almost.
I guess what I was hoping to get to in this episode was to the closest we could get to an adventure game that's not an adventure game, and I don't feel like we've done that. Which is okay. Mm-hmm. It's been a fun thought experiment regardless. I mean, it's not like an adventure. It's just about the journey or whatever, not the destination. But yeah, I think that's what my loose, unarticulated aim would have been to find a shining example of something that's as close to an adventure game as you could get without being an adventure game, as opposed to a loose collection of things that have an adventurous vibe sometimes if you squint your eyes.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought that Dragon's Age Origins was and Fallout 3 were...
Fallout 3 sounded like one. I didn't, yeah. Fallout 3 did sound... I mean, I haven't played it, obviously, so I don't know. But, okay, so what the answer to my own question there, for me, would be Red Dead 2. Because, and maybe this can help us bring this whole thing together, I could put up with the action sequences as they happened because I was excited enough to get back to the story.
Right, and Origins is much like that. Yes, that's true.
So and I guess that would be the spirit of an adventure game, not momentary, not like fleeting conversations with people, with like NPC lore, and not undefined exploration, but a great story at the core of the game. Mm-hmm. Which I've heard, like Witcher 3, I think is a game I've heard that has that. Portal's another game that people say is like that, where like there's this really good story at the heart of it, and even if you're thrown moments of action sequences or just you're given things that you have to do, it's like you can't wait to get back to the story or to find out what had to. Everything you're doing is progressing the larger story.
Portal's an interesting example too. I mean, I've played around with that. I guess I'd call it a puzzle platform game, but it's essentially the whole game is inventory puzzles. Your portal gun. So there's like almost no combat. It's super heavy on narrative humor and environmental storytelling.
Okay.
So, but even in Red Dead, like the core mechanics are built around what? Combat, shooting, you're traveling around. It's not puzzles and dialogue trees as much. It's a simulated world that you can totally derail the whole story with enough chaos. Like you can just go in there and totally fuck shit up, right? Inventory and progression are tied to survival and crafting more so than puzzle solving.
Right. The only thing off the mark there is dialogue. There is like branching dialogue and things like that. But you're right. Otherwise, I mean, it, like any Rockstar game, you can avoid the story altogether.
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah.
You can just go out there in the world and just mess things up, kill everybody in your camp and just, do whatever. You can really just do whatever the hell you want to do. But I would venture to say that Dragon's Age, again, is like that. You want to hear the story unfold. It's not just about backgrounds. It's the story of the game, the story of the kingdoms, the story of the world. Much like Red Dead, you're invested. You want to know what happens. Like, one of your main characters, Alistair, what is his background really? Who were his parents? What happened to the sister who was alienated? Like, oh my God, soap opera. I need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess something hypocritical on my behalf was to say that Stardew was tough with the sandbox aspect, because Red Dead does have the same thing where you can avoid the story altogether. I would still stand by the fact that with Stardew there isn't a story to fall back on if you wanted to. There's just interactions. Now, again, not shitting on it. It's not trying to be a storytelling game necessarily.
Oh, the Stardew fans are going to be sending you hate mail.
I know. I can't again. None of that is to say it's a bad game. It's just to say that I don't think it's close to an adventure game.
But I mean, on your side, Red Dead, it doesn't rush us, right? If you want to slow down and observe and engage with your environment, kind of like an adventure game, it's going to let you do that. Like, even the controls are kind of slow and physical. Like, it's more, I don't know, forcing presence over reflex, I guess.
It's like when I think back on that game, all I think about is the story.
Mm-hmm. Like the cults, and like there's no obligation, but there's, I don't know, from just what I've played in it so far, there's crazy stuff, right? There's cults and ghost stories and serial killers, and they're all there and layered, kind of like an adventure game side content in the game, right?
Yeah, but yes, and I knew you were going that direction. That's why I want to interject and say, but that's not what I remember though. Like, yeah, the clan in the woods, or the young girl who was about to be R-worded, and you get her backstories, you take her home heroically and stuff like that. And that's, I guess, spoilers to anybody who wants to play it and has it, skip ahead a minute, starting now. But earlier when I was thinking about the Red Dead before we recorded the episode, now I have to say this all within that minute that they're skipping, is remembering the moment that Arthur coughs for the first time. Actually, shit, do you know about this part?
Yeah, my kid told me the damn. He's like, I just need to tell you this, Mom, because he's finished the game like 3 freaking times now.
He's forgiven for his age, for sure. That's okay, I get it. But the first time Arthur coughs, I thought about that on the bicycle today, and just like had an emotional reaction, like, oh, it's like, no, it's so heartbreaking. Like the game is, his fate is sealed as soon as he coughs. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can play the game 3 or 5 times and never change the fact that that's what's going to happen to Arthur. And like, it sucks. Like, you really grow to like him, and like, you are him for 40 fucking hours. And so it's like, that's the core of great storytelling, where it's like the second just remembering the moment that he coughs for the first time and having your heart break a little bit on your stationary bike and being like, oh man. Like, that's good fucking storytelling. It's not about the little side quests and this and that. Those are all great, and they add flavor and blah, blah, blah. But it's like at the core of the overarching story, it's really good. It's like they wrote the story first, and then they put a game around it.
Oh, speaking of spoilers, I do want to apologize to a listener who commented that we, as they were playing through, I'm not going to spoil it again, but as they were playing through Thimbleweed Park, we said something about the game, and we didn't do a spoiler warning first. And I thoroughly apologize for that, because it is a recent enough game that we should keep that in mind in the future. So if you're listening again, I'm sorry. I hope you still enjoyed.
I hope it was Anna.
I don't know. It was us for sure. One of us for sure.
That sucks, because I love that game so much. I want them to have the experience I had, and we took that from them. I feel ashamed.
It wasn't even in our episode about that game. It was in an episode that
needlessly
we mentioned in passing without consideration to our marvelous listeners. So many apologies.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous. It's not what you come here for, man.
All right. Well, I have to pee, so let's finish. Let's be done with this.
Let's be done with this for sure. I've asked my questions. I want to say thanks to all of you for listening. And hey, tell me, what is an adventurous adventure game that you've played? And maybe you agree or disagree with one of us, because it seems that we both kind of have strong opinions on it one way or the other, which is actually pretty unusual. So that's kind of cool. So if you have some thoughts on that, to tell us that I'm right or whatever you want to do, feel free
Right.
to send something in. And make a comment. You know what? We're looking. There's comments on YouTube or on Patreon or wherever you want to say your thing. We're doing better about checking that stuff out, catching up on the backlog, and that's a good thing. But in the meantime, hey, Ryan, and hey, Fabian, and hey, Charles, and hey, SF, thank you so much for joining our Patreon crew in the last little while. Really appreciate that you give a listen. Before I give in the rest of the Patreons, you also wanted to do a shout out for somebody, right?
Yes, Emil. To Emil Levine or Levin. I don't know. I'm going the Ashkenazi route there. I mean, in Jersey, we would have just said Levin, but it's probably Levin. And it might be Emil. Look, I've really overthought how to pronounce your name.
We did. We talked about this for a few minutes before the episode.
Because it could be Emul, but that would be more like Scandinavian, I think. Whereas again, the more Jewy pronunciation should be Emil. Look, the point is not how to pronounce your name necessarily, but is to say thank you very, 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 very much for everything that you've said about the Phantom Fellows. And I've noticed a few of your comments here and there, kind of propping the game up and suggesting it to people and just being so kind about it that the last comment you saw, I think I screenshotted just to have it. Maybe it might have been in the way that we take pictures of fireworks. You might not ever look at the picture again, but I feel good knowing I have that screenshot of this really nice thing somebody said about the game once, and that's you, Emil. It means the absolute world to me. Like on a sincere level, working on the second game. Getting rejected like 12 times by Wikipedia, trying to get it a wiki entry. For some reason, I'm not even sure why at this point I was even trying to, but you get these little moments of like, dang it, I wish this or that for the game. Would have been cool. PC Gamer did a thing about it, and then it could be in the wiki and this and that, and then you want to kick rocks for a second, and you find a comment from someone like Emil that's just like that the game just really reached and really spoke to, and they had a really, really like exceptionally good time with it. It's everything. It's like all the motivation needed. It rinses away any small aftertaste of disappointment from making the mistake of setting expectations to begin with, and finding people that did really connect with it and found it to be something special to them. It goes a long way. So thank you very, very much, Ben. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, and he's with Twisted Sickle, and his most recent release of games is Reverend. Yes. And highly recommend it. If we're Googling what exactly does it mean to be a boomer shooter. It's not exactly what I thought it would be. But yeah, sort of closely, if you like Doom, if you like all of those kinds of old school games, you like hardcore, awesome music and everything. It's a dark, twisted kind of a tale, and you're going to go around and you're going to love it. It's totally inspired by, or even Duke Nukem, right? Duke Nukem 3D, those are all games that I played with my dad when I was growing up. So when I played Reverend, it took me right back to that spot. So check it out. It's just a couple of bucks. It's out there on Steam, and it's definitely worth a playthrough.
Yeah, there'll be a link in the episode description for it too.
Yeah, exactly. And so also Gareth, Mick, Brian, Chapman, Christopher, Jeffrey, Mark, Yanis, and Tim, thank you so much for being on our True Believer tier. You guys have continued to believe in us month after month, and we really appreciate it. It motivates us to keep going when sometimes we're like, should we do another episode? Do we want to put in the effort? It's like, no, this is what people want. They want to hear it. They say so. It's out there, and so thank you so much for all of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Otherwise, the Phantom Fellows, pick it up, share the word about it, share it with your friends. We really want to see it get a bit of a second boom. It goes on sale periodically with various sites, and just say something about it. Even just tell your friend sitting next to you on the bus, hey, you like adventure games? Yes, no, doesn't matter. You like Ghosts? Pick up this game.
For real. Any reviews would be appreciated. it's 40% off on Steam right now, 15% off on GOG. So there's that. And yeah, working on the second game right now, which is coming along really, really good. Second game is going to be 3 days instead of 7, so it'll be a shorter game, a little bit more manageable for everyone.
And that means it might come out a little bit sooner.
Yeah, exactly. 27 would be probably a realistic goal for that. And yeah, almost done day 8. It's going to continue right on. And then for anybody who doesn't play the first one, by the time the second game comes out, you won't have had to have played the first game. And for anybody that has played the first game and is wondering how the fuck is that possible, you'll see.
Exactly. So yeah, find us. We're out there on the wide web. On Twitter, it's CGG Podcast and the Phantom Fellows. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Mastodon.
We are.
You can, we definitely are. You can email us, mail@cggpodcast.com. Join Patreon. Find us on Facebook. We're a page and a group. Join the group. It's always a great time. You know, I don't mention it too often, but in the Classic Gamers Guild, we do have beer club on Saturdays. We have ladies' night on Fridays. We do Mad Libs, and we do little games and stuff. It's fun. There's prizes often and things going on. It's just a nice little place to talk about all of your favorite adventure games with a really supportive vibe that is a little bit more female-centric, perhaps, than some of the other groups out there. If there's, girls that listen to our podcast, I don't know. I don't hear from them very often. I'm assuming there must be at least a few out there. If there is, feel free to shout out and say, hey, of course I listen to your show. But no matter who you are, I'm really glad that you do. We're also on Instagram and we're on YouTube. So thanks for checking it out.
Just don't do murder.
Ah, yes, you remember this hole.